2 years ago, I packed my car, old Chevette, 84. Drove it till the engine smoked, hitched a ride through San Antone. Got a job, tending bar, let a senorita break my heart. I wanna sink my feet into some Illinois clay, walk along the cornfield in the cool of the day, get a dog and chase a rat.
All right, welcome everyone. We are pretty excited to have our guest today for our 20th episode here on the Common Ground podcast. And I know Brad and I are pretty excited. Hopefully Austin is as well. And today we're going to be having Austin Suhr. He is the Chief Operations Officer at CommonGround. Wanted to bring him on and introduce him to everyone and kind of get a feel for what he does and how he does it. So really excited. Thank you for joining us today, Austin.
Thank you, guys. I'm super excited to be here and glad I could finally score an invite from the
Is this your first podcast?
Yes, it is.
Nice.
We wanted to make you the special number 20 episode, okay?
Lucky number 20.
Yeah, there you go. So Austin, just like some of our other employees, it's been unintentional, but originally from Iowa? Just like
born and raised Sioux City, Iowa. Went to the University of Iowa. I'm an Iowa boy.
Iowa boy.
Yeah. Huh.
Nice.
So, yeah, you grew up around agricultural industries. You're Sioux City, right?
Yep, Sioux City.
Yeah.
Town about 80,000 there in the Missouri River. Border Nebraska, South Dakota. So really strong agricultural area.
Austin's been such an intricate part of our business. He joined us in 2020. At the time, we didn't know if it was going to necessarily be a full-time role. But it really kind of morphed itself into Austin, where it has probably wore most every hat that we have within the Common Ground company.
Literally and figuratively.
Yeah. So I joined in 2020. At the time, I was studying for my CPA exam, so it wasn't even a full-time position, but working with a small team and launching a company. This was just before we launched. It was so exciting to me, and the world of public accounting was a little less exciting, and gave me a little less space to be creative and do things that I like to do. So I was lucky enough to be able to come on full time, and I've been with the company ever since.
Did you ever take your CPA exam, or did you just study for it?
I studied for them, and then I never took them.
Oh, man.
I know it.
Awesome. What was your spot? You were going to be at KPMG there in Southern California, or actually San Francisco area, right?
Yeah, I did an internship at KPMG on the public accounting side in San Francisco and got a return offer. I was all set to join them in actually June of 2020. Then COVID hit. And so they pushed back the start date. So I was studying for my CPA exams, and while I was doing that, I was lucky enough to come on part-time at CommonGround and really changed the course of my life. I was all set to move out to San Francisco in January, and I told them I'm not coming.
Changed the course of a lot of people's lives.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah. Well, we've absolutely loved having Austin on the team, and like I said, he is so important to what we've done on numerous aspects. One being, what I would argue, kind of our main tool set within Common Ground, being what is our Cashrentstimate. Chris and me had dreamt up the Cashrentstimate idea probably prior to Austin joining us, and our whole thought process behind it was we would like to be able to offer a realistic valuation for landowners on what they should expect in an annual return on a crop basis. So if it's a farm in the Midwest and you're growing corn or soybeans, we wanted to, or my envision of this was always to break this down, even down to a county level, on with a multitude of factors in there that basically you could, just like you can today, go to Common Ground, get your free cash rent estimate, and it will give you a very narrow range of what is expected on ROI for your specific farm. It's the only tool set out there that offers this sort of data, and it was almost 100% other than dreamt up by Chris and me. And Austin really was the driver for creating these algorithms and putting all of these different facets of whether it be soil types in a specific area, geographical location, county averages on yields, all this sort of different stuff. And so he pulled all this together into a really, really unique model to where the cash rent estimate flows in the fashion it does today. We started originally kind of in Indiana, or I'm sorry, not Indiana, in Illinois and Iowa. They have different soil ratings, PI with productivity index in Illinois, and then CSR2 in the state of Iowa, corn suitability rating. And so that was kind of the first hurdle for Austin to really, right, Austin, to learn like what is.
It was pretty basic. I mean, we had the idea, we had the premise. I put some math behind it. We had version 1 kind of up and running when Austin came on board, if I remember correctly. But once he kind of wrapped his mathematical mind around things, he kind of took it to the next level. So maybe expand on that a little bit, Austin, without giving away the secret sauce, please.
Yeah, careful. So when I joined CommonGround, you guys, it's been so long, I had trouble remembering. You guys had a first version of the Cashrentstimate put together for Illinois and Iowa. It was essentially just a linear scale, higher soil rating, higher PI, higher CSR2, higher Cashrentstimate. And that worked actually super well for Illinois. And it was certainly a step up over what was out there before, which was literally nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like that was kind of the founding principle of Cash Rent, as it was named then, but now CommonGround, was Chris, you as a farmer, or not you as a farmer, you as a landowner, you'd bought a piece of farmland and you were like, there's no damn resources out there for me to have any idea what my cash rental rate should be.
Yeah, I mean, you have the USDA, as we've said before, with their county averages that are, self-reported, but it's garbage in, garbage out, and it's stale data. And that's when Brad and I kind of said, hey, there's got to be a better way for landowners to find out what their, market rental rate should be. And, like I said, the first version was pretty rudimentary compared to what we have today, and where you've taken it.
Yeah, so I was tasked with expanding this original system to other states. And so while Illinois and Iowa use PI, which is productivity, and CSR2 respectively, the vast majority of other states in the country use a rating system called National Crop Commodity Productivity Index, or NCCPI. And as I was digging into the data for states like Indiana, Minnesota, Nebraska, Kansas, other Midwestern states, I noticed that a rating NCCPI of 80 in Indiana might have meant $250 an acre, while in Ohio it meant $150 an acre, or even that within the state of Indiana, across different counties, an 80 in one county might mean something totally different than an 80 in a different county in Indiana. So I figured there's got to be a number of different factors here that goes into the cash rental rate. And so it was clear to me that a linear system with just the soil rating wasn't going to be able to expand across the Midwest, and that we kind of had to rethink our approach to the Cashrentstimate. And so I went on a day-to-day hunting mission, just reading everything I could find on how to value farmland from a sales perspective and from a rental perspective, and just finding as much data that I could that we could possibly plug in to the Cashrentstimate that we were trying to build, something that would be applicable across the entire Midwest and not just Illinois and Iowa, and something a little bit more sophisticated than simple soil rating systems. So now I've got hundreds of data points for each county, ranging from historic yields to crops grown to floodplain data, and even weird things like grain elevator proximity. And I was reading a lot about machine learning at this time. This project kind of got me into it, and I was into it a bit before that. It's pretty clear to me that that's what we needed to build, a machine learning model. And I'd always liked math. I participated in state math competitions in high school. I built some predictive. Because
competitions.
All right, deep down.
Boy, things aren't adding up here.
Football, math, and quiz ball. Those are my goals.
Nice. I got to see these trophies someday.
There's some good photos of me out there in a sweater vest.
That's awesome.
And how many states are we? We're 27 active in Cashrentstimate. 25. 25. So it's not like it's a set it and forget it, one and done. It's constantly changing, and our approach to it. I know we want to make it as dynamic as possible and take into account commodity prices and current market conditions and input costs. So it's one of those where you can come to a Cashrentstimate on your particular ag ground today, and you can come back 6 months later, and it's going to be different slightly.
Exactly, especially in areas where we've got real lease auction data that we bring through the platform. So the model learns from the auctions that we facilitate and from data that people input regarding their current cash rental rates. And so it's constantly changing, as Chris said. It'll be different potentially 1 month, 2 months, 6 months down the road.
And I know, like, some of the challenges that, like, this was not an easy lift by any stretch. And there's so many different factors that we learned as we got kind of into this part further that are maybe not always seen, right? Like from areas we can tell if a field has a pivot on it. And so an irrigated field is going to have a different factor than a non-irrigated field. And so even through the Cashrentstimate process, you can pick irrigated, non-irrigated, and it will take into account that. Some of the other, like another aspect though, that is very, very challenging for us to know, unless the landowner specifically knows, is there a field tile in there? How much field tile is there? Is it pattern tile? Is it, so all these different factors that when we began this, we had a range of what, Austin, maybe 15% from high expectation to low expectation.
Yep.
And we're down now to what, almost like a 5% range.
Yep, 5% each side.
Yeah. And so it's a very narrow band now that we believe we're just through all the data that we've been able to collect from actual true cash rental leases, right, that we've seen. This is data that it's just not readily available. I would look at it as like field by field. Is there a resource out there that you can go take a look and see what this field next to me yielded last year? Not a chance. No. And so, this is kind of along those same lines that it's hard for even neighboring landowners in a lot of cases to know what the neighbor's getting, or what a similar field 10 miles up the road is getting, maybe owned by the same landowner, potentially farmed by the same operator or two different operators. And so when you're kind of creating a data set that doesn't have, like, there's not a matching data set out there to go utilize as a resource. The resources that are out there are terribly antiquated. They're in most cases a year out of date, and they're self-reported, like Chris said. And so Austin was able to really put this together well and utilize actual real-time data that there's, short of, pulling sales comps and stuff like that for sales data, something along those lines. There's really nothing out there for leasing data.
Well, I think one of the coolest things that we've got is it's constantly learning, because when we first started out, we said, hey, here's our best equation, and we provided that range. Well, when we're back feeding in actual real-time auction data, to tighten that band and get more accurate, because let's face it, there's some intangibles that drive prices. Maybe one farmer is willing to bid more because he's farming the piece right next door. And, we have no idea how that feeds into, what they're willing to pay. Farming operations have different risk appetites and operate on different margins. So the fact that this thing is constantly learning from real-time auction data is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely. And finding the proper weighting for those real-time auctions. Like you said, every auction's different. Might be someone farming it next door, they're willing to pay a lot more. So finding that balance between the real data and the ground truth of the data that we have is kind of the secret sauce we've cooked up.
Nice. So what, on that note, what other things do you want to share, kind of what you do and tackle? I know you've got some cool projects you're working on, but you've worn a lot of hats, and you've touched pretty much every aspect of the business.
Yeah, I certainly have. What I love to do most is work on the product. So the website, the little interactions, the thing that most of our users hopefully never have to think about. I love getting down to those little details and working at the intersection of product, software development, data. And like you said, we've got some more really cool machine learning applications that we should hopefully be launching later this year.
Over time, it's become less common. We still run into them, but it's not terribly uncommon. I'm thankful at times that Austin lives on the West Coast now, because I would feel like a real ass at the times of night that I send him messages about questions I have on the website or stuff that I stumble across. The 2 hours behind, it always helps me out, or I feel better about myself that Austin.
When you're texting him at 10 and it's 8 for him.
Yeah,
or last night, it's midnight for Brad. It's 10 for me. I'm like, what the hell's Brad doing up?
Just going through some stuff.
Working.
No, but it's such a spectacular resource. We're so thankful to have Austin with us. And I would have to believe, and maybe I'm wrong, but I would have to believe that there's still a fair amount of people out there that aren't aware of the Cashrentstimate, the value that it can add. There's no expense to it. It's just a great way to kind of do a annual checkup on your farm. And I don't, Austin, would you want to share your screen and run a Cashrentstimate that people can see the ease of the system itself? You want me to do that?
I can certainly do it. Let me pull it up.
Maybe pick a farm in Illinois or Iowa or Indiana, whichever you prefer. But it's unique in the aspect as well that we were able to utilize what is called common land unit CLU fields that it will segment the tillable acres from non-tillable acres on any given property. They're fairly accurate. We continue to do some work internally on existing CLU fields to try to always make those better. If a farmer or landowner maybe pushed some timber back, or they took out some tree lines that maybe didn't exist previously that are now being farmed, we are, actively updating those all the time. And so it's something that is another value add that most systems wouldn't have built into them.
And I think the true value add is when you have a landowner that comes on and runs a Cashrentstimate, and they compare that with their current rental rate, and then they go through the process of putting their farm up through the site, and our average increase for a landowner rental rate is 37.5%, which is astounding.
Just bringing transparency and some competition to a marketplace is.
Yep.
That's been kind of my favorite part about working on the Cashrentstimate is landowners saying, no way I could get $350 for this. I'm getting $250 right now. We say, put it up on the site. You'll see. You'll get some bids that'll really shock you. And the auction ends, and they've got 50% more money in their pocket than they did the previous year. It's
And they get to choose their farmer. They don't have to choose the high bid. They get the discretion to choose whichever operator they want. So
exactly. So we got the Cashrentstimate up here. You're able to, as a user, search by address, search by your parcel ID if you happen to know it, or you can just zoom in to the map and find your parcel. I'll pick a couple nice looking parcels here. Name that parcel if you want to, just to keep them straight in your head. So that's the parcel selection step. Now we've got the CLU selection, and CLU, as Brad said, stands for Common Land Unit. It's essentially how individual parcels are divided up.
So would you zoom in a little bit there, just so you can see where like the CLUs are taking out that waterway or that creek on this specific track?
Exactly, and they've got this little home removed. Makes it really easy for landowners or anyone who's getting a Cashrentstimate to just click, and assign the irrigated areas or the tillable areas. So we've got tillable, non-irrigated here, or we can click irrigated. All of these are non-irrigated. So we'll click and label all of those.
And we found it like on some properties, you'll have, if it's say like a quarter section at 160, it might have one CLU. In others, it might have a dozen, right? Just depending on how the little fields are broke up, or even if there's no real reason for a break in the field, just at times it's how the CLUs were always designed.
Yep, exactly. And there might have been a reason in the past, but there's no longer a reason. So we click in, you kind of confirm the details of your Cashrentstimate here, make sure that the county looks good. Done. I'm just interested. And here we are. Here's the Cashrentstimate.
So we've got a total of
226,000, 302 tillable acres, and this is a really good property, between 437 and 397 per acre.
And explain, scroll up a little bit, Austin. Explain, just so everybody knows, because I've got questions. Scroll down a little bit where it talks about the expected yields. And so, yeah, right in there. So if we're looking at average temperature preset, expected corn yield, and expected soybean yield, that is not necessarily broke down to that specific field. Those are county averages for those crops, correct? And so this one is this specific field would probably be above average for that county. We would expect that the yields are going to be higher than what we're seeing maybe on this diagram.
Yep, and that's exactly the case. So these are the county averages. Corn yields, bushels per acre in Livingston County, Illinois. And then here's on average what the soybean yields are for that same county. And the same thing with these temperature and precipitations. Those are also things that we consider in the Cashrentstimate. Obviously, precipitation is an enormous factor in growing crops, and temperature can be an enormous factor as well. You don't want to be burning them up, and you don't want to be too cold too long.
Yep. You get a soil map that is tied directly to the Cashrentstimate. In this case, of 135.7 PI. So you're on the low range of an A-class soil there, but overall, that's a really nice farm. I couldn't tell you what that landowner is getting currently in cash rent. Hopefully, they're getting somewhere around 400. That seems like would be a fair value for what we're seeing there.
Yep, absolutely. And then we break down all the soils present on the property here in this table down below and give you the ultimate PI average. 135 that's an incredible PI.
Yep.
Good PI. And so, like, but you can't necessarily just look at PI, right? Because that PI, a 135 in this case, Livingston County, might have different soil type makeup than a 135 PI in McLean County, Illinois. right?
Yeah.
And so, all the soils are not, necessarily the same. In this case, Aerosmith Silt with a 140 PI would be the leader on this specific track. Um, and so it breaks them all down, but a 135 isn't necessarily a 135 everywhere across the board in the state of Michigan.
Exactly. And there's things like floodplain data, historic yields, historic flood data that can make a 135 next to a river that floods all the time worth a lot less than a 135 in an area that never floods.
Yep.
No, that's a good exercise. And I would encourage, if you're a landowner, this is just such an easy tool to utilize. We've got in-house, once Cashrentstimate come in like they do every day, you will get a phone call, within hours typically, from one of our in-house professionals, just to discuss the Cashrentstimate, to discuss your farm options that we're able to offer to help increase your yield across the board. We have additional resources, whether it be for further farm management, in-house, that we've with folks that are very reputable, that we would highly recommend for anyone who's looking for further down the line attention to their farm. So much of this stuff, and I have this conversation with landowners all the time, that if the time ever comes that you or your family says it's time to sell the farm, having solid lease agreements that have historically kind of encouraged to or forced the operator to give the landowner yield data annually, soil tests, either annually, biannually, keeping records of the yields of the soil tests, of all that stuff. At the time that you go to sell, your farm inherently will be worth more money by having this data to back, any price tag that you decide that you believe is worth. But farms that don't have the soil tests historically, don't have the yield data historically, it's just much more challenging for an investor or for an operator to really get their head around, what is the actual value of this? Has this farm been taken care of over the years? And, we have always been so adamant on soil sustainability. We want the best farmers on the as much ground as possible, that, for the long-term value of that farm, not even just outside of the annual monetary sort of figures coming in, the long term of total value is much higher when you have this stuff in line. And our lease agreements, they cover all that. The yields are expected to be given to landowners. We do expect soil tests to be done in increments, but beyond that sort of stuff that is in our lease agreement, stuff that we can educate landowners on, the next step would be that farm management process. That, like I said, we have a very, very strong network of folks that we have a lot of faith in, that for some people, it makes a lot of sense to go that route. We're just one facet of what I would say a farm manager's responsibility, which is finding the correct tenant, kind of step one, finding the correct tenant for that farm. In this case, this allows the landowner to have all the local farmers come to them, offer what they believe is a fair rate, or a rate that they're willing and able to pay. And so instead of us naming the price, we allow the farmers to kind of dictate, what the actual value is in the current market. For 1 year or 2 year, we really try to avoid 1 year's leases because of that soil sustainability sort of issue, that we don't think that farmers will necessarily be putting back if they're not guaranteed additional years. And so we really like to see 3-year leases. It gives the operator opportunity to maybe bring some soils up that had been beat down year one. And so that's kind of the methodology that we use behind it. We would like to, in all cases, create long-term, strong relationships between these farmers and these landowners.
And I think, just kind of diverging from that, what I think is awesome about what we've created here is we went into this, okay, let's do the Cashrentstimate tool to provide price discovery for landowners. And that was the whole premise behind it. And now we start seeing, who's actually using this tool. And now land professionals are starting to use this tool, because maybe you're a land broker and you're saying, well, the current rent's 200, but it should be getting 350. Well, that's valuable data for that land broker and their clients looking at the farm. Maybe you're an appraisal, hey, we got to do an appraisal on this farm. Well, what is it renting for, and what could it actually rent for? Or auction companies. So really awesome to see that it's being used by land professionals and not just landowners. And, it's slowly getting adopted throughout an entire industry.
And we've seen through, realistically, hundreds of leases gone through now. As far as I've never seen one that's actually gone lower than the low range of our Cashrentstimate valuation.
Most of them exceed the high range in most cases.
Vast majority do. We're coming into a market right now, the way that these commodities are continue to give the appearance of being very bearish. Hard to say for what duration of time, but I do believe we're going to start falling more into right in the middle or the lower end of our range. But I still have the utmost confidence in the range that we give for any given field. When we were seeing 20% above our expectations, when corn was at different values or soybeans were at different values, I think, our range is still very realistic. The last thing we want to do is overpromise, underdeliver. I would still just be much more comfortable with keeping it in the range that's expected and everybody's kind of on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Chris said, it's become kind of a go-to tool for land professionals, landowners, and farmers throughout the Midwest, and that's been really cool for me. Probably the thing I'm proudest of in my career.
Yeah, a lot of farmers use this as well. And whether they're checking on the ground that they're currently renting, or checking on somebody else's ground that's being rented, and so a lot of farmers are using this as well.
Yeah.
Austin, what do you like to do for fun?
What do I like to do for fun? Play basketball down at the park, work out. Go to the
Not
pool.
wear a shirt.
Yeah, not wear a shirt. Yeah.
Interesting fact that Austin is shirtless more often than not.
Gotta do it while I can.
That's right. That's right.
So I know we're not going to discuss it today, but Austin is very deeply working on some additional, horsepower to even put behind the current Cashrentstimate that is going to even take it to the next step. Like I said, we're not going to talk about it right now, but we'll be very excited here in the next 6 to 12 months to release a lot of this new stuff that is, substantially even more groundbreaking than what we have here, right? That the ease of the mapping, or the ease of the system in general, Austin's done a spectacular job of manipulating this and really got this set up to be put into a completely different sort of space.
The ultimate goal, realistically, is to make it as easy as possible. And, I think by, the end of 24, we're going to be in a good spot where you can just kind of hover over parcels and be able to see what the rental rates are. Take a lot of the manual intervention out of things.
Little sneak peek there. And as Chris was saying, if we can just hover over them, we can do them automatically.
Mm-hmm.
People. And so the goal for the end of 24 is scale it up.
Yeah. And we're super excited for that. What else? You got anything else that other aspects of the business you worked on, any that you really enjoyed? Any shoes you would like to fill tomorrow?
I enjoy them all. I enjoy doing stuff. I'm like a Dennis Rodman. If you need some hustle, that's me. I'll do anything what it takes for us to win.
That's it. I love it. I love it. Rodman, that's a perfect like comparison, I would say, on Austin Suhr.
Likes to get in there and get
Fight, grind.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it's spectacular. And you're a pretty good ball player, aren't you?
Yeah, I like to play.
Yeah. Yeah.
Didn't we
hustle though.
You're not any good at pop a shot, though. We know that much.
Ain't too bad at pool though.
Yeah, I had an off night.
When are we playing again?
I don't know. Whenever you get back in town.
Do you have any plans to come visit Iowa? Come see your mom?
I'd like to come soon.
Yeah. Yeah, you like the
Summertime
humid.
is the best time to do it.
Yeah, you love the Midwest humid summertime. From what
I do.
I understand.
Thing I
Yeah.
miss most. A hot, humid summer day.
Well, it's been like that, man. The corn's growing, the soybeans are growing. We've been getting rains. The commodity market sucks, but the yield should be good. And so I guess the only way to hedge off that at this point is to out yield. But everything I've seen here locally or throughout the state in my travels, the crops look very, very good.
Very
we keep getting these timely rains. Yeah. So, I mean, you get outside of those portions of Iowa and stuff that are underwater, maybe even close to where you grew up, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That just got the excess of water. But for the most part, the crops look good. Like I said, the market reflects pretty ugly numbers at the moment, but we're confident that give this some time, this will bounce back. Everything I'm reading, it's very cyclical. It always has been. We're just going to be in a little bit of an ugly values sort of state here for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm hoping we can bounce back.
Yeah, I'm almost positive we will. Austin, do you have anything else you want to talk about, share? Just love having you on here, honestly.
I don't think so. It's been a lot of fun though.
Okay.
You killed it. You killed your first podcast, Austin.
Oh yeah?
I think you did so great. You can take my spot as host and add that to your
third chair. Give me the third
add that
chair.
to your resume. Podcast host, Common Ground.
Yes.
As if you need more to do.
Well, yeah, you've got a full plate, but once we get this new Cashrentstimate updated system done, we'll have you back on, and maybe it'll be like the way that we'll introduce it to everybody as the first run through public viewing of the new system.
Wow, you really know how to motivate me to get something done.
There you go, just knock it out now, right? Yeah, you've got till like the end of next week. Let's do it.
Yeah, no more basketball until this is done.
No injured reserve list. Yeah,
there you go.
You're just coming off what, your third bout of COVID?
Yeah. I guess I was on the IR for a bit.
Nasty stuff.
Feeling better now.
Good to have you back in the saddle, though. So, really appreciate the time and you coming on and going through some things. So, always a pleasure.
Good talking to you guys.
Austin Suhr, you're the man. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, everybody out there, don't forget to like and join the Common Ground community. And thank you again for joining us. And we will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Feel